I just recently received a bunch of lithium ion cells in the mail, and I'm going to be using them to build a battery pack out for my AR Wing Pro. And I thought maybe you guys would like to come along for the ride and learn a little bit more about that process. So lithium ion cells are similar to lipos in terms of that they're both using lithium as the basis for them, but they're quite different in terms of how they perform and what we can use them for. So what I'd like to do just a little bit here at the beginning is just to talk about some lithium ion cells and what you kind of need to know about them, and some of the small things that are different about the lithium ion cells versus a normal lipo. So the main thing that's really different about the lithium ion cells and lipos, well, it's kind of two things that go together. One is, for the most part, lithium ion cells are not massive drain kinds of batteries. They're not going to be putting out hundreds and hundreds of amps from one cell. They just can't do it. But that's okay. They put out enough power for us to be able to use them for the purposes that we need. And the other thing that's really different about them from lipos is that with lipos, if you're flying with them, typically you're looking at stopping your flight when the batteries are around 3.5 volts. That's getting to be pretty low. Of course, you can take them down lower than that, 3.35 or so. However, the lower you go from that, you're really looking at damaging your battery and reducing its lifespan. The difference with lithium ion cells is you can safely take them down all the way to 3 volts anytime you want with no issue whatsoever. And so you actually get a larger amount of capacity and voltage range that you can use with a lithium ion cell that you can't use with a lipo. And so by going over to a lithium ion cell in a flight pack, you're actually getting an extended voltage range that you can use, and therefore an extended flight. The big disadvantages with these, however, is that this is what you get. Right? It's this size. This is a 21700 sized lithium ion cell, which means it's 21 millimeters wide by 70 millimeters long. So it's a 21700. There's an extra zero on the end to mean that it's round, which is a circular cell. It's an international standard. These are set size, set weight, and so when you get a 21700 battery, you know it is going to be this size and it won't exceed roughly 72 grams. There's a little variance there. These ones all weigh 70. With a lipo, however, they can be lots of different sizes, lots of different dimensions, and so they're a little bit more flexible in terms of how you can put them into something. But if you're going to use lithium ions, you'll either have a 21700 like this, or perhaps an 18650 like this size here, and that's what you'll have to use. And so you'll have to figure out how to make them fit your particular purpose. The other really important thing to remember when you're talking about the lithium ion cells is that they have basically sort of two very general categories of them. There's a type of lithium ion cell that cannot produce large amounts of current. Well, they can under really extreme conditions, and it's really dangerous if you do that. So right here, I'm just going to pull this over. This is just an ordinary old 18650 that I recycled out of a laptop battery. I took an old laptop battery and pulled it apart and pulled this one out of it, and it's a good cell. I used to do that quite a bit. Here's a little 120 cell pack that I would make. This is 120 laptop 18650s from dead laptop batteries that I recycled, pulled out, and these are all the good cells that were in there. And I turned them into large battery packs like this, or into little battery packs like this that I use for my goggles and things like that I need a small amount of power for. But these cells cannot put out, at least safely, cannot put out more than 2 or maybe 4 amps. When you start pushing past that, these will start to heat up and they will become actually quite unsafe. They are not intended for a high drain. Other cells, they look exactly the same, I'll just pull over two more here. These are both 18650s. They look identical. They're both Samsung. They both say INR 18650, INR 18650. One says 30Q, which the 30 is its capacity. It's a 3000 milliamp hour battery. This one here, 18650, INR 35. That's a 3.5 amp hour, 3500 milliamp hour battery. Then they've got this letter at the end, a Q or an E. If you don't know what you're looking at, these two batteries look identical. And in every way, they would sort of charge up to 4.2 volts as the maximum. They go down to their sort of 3.0 volts as the absolute sort of safe voltage range that you can use them at. Except this one here is capable of putting out 35 amps. Whereas this one here is only capable of putting out 3. And if you see on this particular one here, I'm not sure if it'll show up on the camera or not, but it says fire hazard, not for vape. Which means if you try to pull too much current through it, it becomes a fire hazard. So on mine, I've just actually written on it, goggles only. So I know that I don't mix it up in any place that I wouldn't want to use it. So when you're looking to use lithium ion cells in RC equipment, whether it's as a flight pack for one of your airplanes or quadcopters, or to power one of your remote control units or something, you need to make sure that you're choosing the right kind for that job. Now, the ones that I have for the battery pack that I'm going to be building for my AR wing are Moly cell. These are 4.5 amp hour capacity, so 4,500 milliamp hours, and they are capable of putting out 45 amps continuously. 45 amps of current continuously is not a lot, right? This huge 5,000 milliamp hour battery, in theory, can produce close to 350 amps. Realistically, it's going to be closer to probably 200. But that's way, way, way more than these lithium ion cells can provide. And so when you use these cells, it does change how you can fly. You will not be able to do wide open throttle bursts because it will not handle it. However, if you switch this over and made it into 2 parallel, right? 4S 2 parallel, and had a 9,000 milliamp hour pack, it would be able to produce over 90 amps continuous. And that would be way, way, way within the range and capacity of the AR wing system. Now, why would I want to do that? Why don't I just take, here's a nice, 3,300 milliamp 4S LiPo. Here is the biggest battery that I can fit in my AR Wing Pro is a LiPo, which is a 5 amp hour or 5,000 milliamp hour 4S LiPo. Well, if you take a look, here are 4 of these lithium ion cells beside a full-size pack. These are only together, if I make that into a pack, that's 500 milliamp hours less than this one. You can see very clearly that it's much, much smaller. And in terms of weight, this is about 250 grams lighter. So let's just pop this on the scale here. The biggest battery I can fit in my AR Wing Pro is this one here, and it weighs 526 grams. These 4 lithium ion cells, with the wire I'll need to put on there and the connector and the balance lead, comes out to 289 grams. Now there's going to be a little bit more on there with tape and solder and stuff, so let's call it 300 grams. So 525 down to 300. That's a 200 gram savings, and I'm getting basically the same battery size. And if I double it, if I make this into a 2 parallel, which will then double the capacity, let's make this into a 9 amp hour battery now. We'll just add the other 4, that we would make it 4S 2P, and now we are at 560 grams. So let's make it another 10 grams, let's make it 575 grams to add in the weight for the solder and tape and so on like that. 575 grams, a 9 amp hour battery versus 525 grams for a 5 amp hour battery. That's the reason for switching over and using the lithium ion cells. You can get much more capacity for the same weight. Now that only works once you kind of reach a certain capacity, right? One of these cells is 70 grams. So you have to be, keeping that in mind, that you're not going to be replacing a small battery using these cells because they are heavy. But once you start getting into the larger capacities, you can make some very large batteries with lithium ion cells very quickly. That's just a quick introduction to the idea of lithium ion cells and why you might want to use them as a battery pack. What I'm going to do from now is maybe just stop this video, and we will go over to another video where we'll discuss building a pack out, some of the safety concerns, and some of the steps that you need to take in order to actually build one. So thank you very much for watching this. I hope you found it at least somewhat helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself, and talk to you soon.